watching Gearz, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
You know, if you watch Gearz very much, you know we like to roll in all kinds of mechanical things. Because gearheads like everything. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, airplanes, it's all good. But every once in a while, I like to roll in something that's really different. Not only to show you what's out there, but also how much fun it is to mess with the odd stuff. And over the years, we've rolled in a lot of crazy things. Take a look. You better hold on.
Oh yeah, look at this. The turn signal is still here in the gas cap.
Okay, the gas cap
is still good.
There's something to hold on to. It's like a booger on your finger.
There we go.
You know, this is why they call them all-terrain vehicles, because they will take everything with them, including the farmer's fence.
See a wheelie? A wheelie? But what do you do if you find one of those crazy different vehicles and it's not running? It's been sitting for a long time. How do you bring it back to life without destroying it in the process? Well, those are good questions. We're going to answer them with this. Now, I know some of you guys are probably looking at this going, what the heck is that? Some kind of a tank? No, but you're close. It's a vintage Thiokol Imp Snowcat that obviously has been sitting around for a long time. Now, at first glance, you may be thinking, man, this needs to go to the junkyard. But you won't think that when you see what these things are capable of when they're operational. In the late 1950s, Thiokol developed a unique all-terrain vehicle that utilized a revolutionary belted track with metal grousers. This was much lighter than the standard military-style metal track. This track, along with the flat bottom of the rig, allowed it to slide over or through mud, sand, bushes, and especially snow. With winter sports growing in popularity every year, as well as the need to access remote areas in deep snow, the Thiokol Trackmaster and Sprite Snowcats became the standard for deep snow operations. But there was only one problem. They were big. So Thiokol developed the Imp to offer a smaller alternative. Roughly the size of a Jeep, the Imp was a hardcore all-terrain vehicle that would fit on a standard trailer and carry people or equipment. And it could go virtually any place the bigger boys would go. Available as a flatbed or with a full cab, the Imp was so popular it remained in production for decades, making it a great choice to pick up as a project vehicle. Unfortunately, most of the Snowcats that you find that are affordable look like this because they just sat around most of the time waiting for that couple of months out of the year when there was snow on the ground and they could go out and go to work. Now, the good news here is that most of the time they have low hours on them. This one only has 700 original hours, and that's nothing. The bad news is they're usually really neglected and kind of beat up, like this one is. But we can fix all that as long as it's mechanically sound. So the first goal here is to get it running and see what we've got. So we're going to clean it up in here, get the seats out, vacuum up any of that mouse crap or any other junk that might be lurking inside here. about something with this much junk on the floor, make sure that you go slow and set aside any bolts or fasteners you may find, because they may have been removed by the prior owner and be specific to the vehicle and hard to find. Once everything is cleaned up, we'll pull the engine and transmission covers to get access to the drivetrain. Then we'll pull off the back of the cab to give us better access to everything else. Now, on something this old, it may take multiple tools and some extreme prejudice to get the rusty bolts out. Okay, roll the doors back, tilt it back, over the gas tank. Ready? There we go. All right, I'll just set it straight down. And just roll the doors forward. You can slide back just a little bit. Hey, welcome back to Gearz, where we are in the process of showing you how to bring an old vehicle back to life that's been sitting for a long time. And we're doing that with a vintage Snowcat because it's just cool. Now, so far we've got it all stripped down, we got the cab pulled back, so we have easy access to the engine. Now comes the fun part, because the engine that powered the Thiokol Imp Snowcat was a V4 Ford that was built in Germany from 1962 to about 1981. And it powered not only Snowcats, but some European vehicles, a bunch of industrial equipment, so it was a great engine. But its real claim to fame...
Ford's recently developed V4 engine and 4-speed transaxle combination, designed for front-wheel drive in the German Taunus 12M, proved a perfect solution.
It was the engine that was mounted in the 1962 Mustang 1 show car.
Its fresh new appearance, its unique styling, generated immediate interest wherever it was seen.
That was originally designed to compete with Chevy's Corvair.
This is the sizzling Corvair Monza Spider with a whopping big 150 horsepower turbo air engine.
Fortunately, Ford realized that a V4 90 horsepower engine in the rear of a car wasn't going to cut it for the Mustang. It dropped a V8 in the front, and of course the rest is history. But the V4 engine lived on. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking, I have never seen anything like that. I wouldn't even know where to start on something like that. Well, you're a gearhead and it's an engine. And it doesn't matter if you're working on a Snowcat or an old Chevy or a Ford or a Dodge or a Jeep or a tractor or a road grader. All engines basically work the same way. And there's a few simple steps that you can take to bring them back to life. Now, the first thing you need to figure out is the engine locked up? And if it is it due to internal damage or is it just from sitting? Because if it's got internal damage, you got no choice but to pull the engine out and rebuild it. But if it's just locked up from sitting, you can break that loose.
Now, quick tip. Brought to you by E3 Spark Plugs. Born to burn.
If you have a vehicle that was running when you parked it, but you've let it sit for a while and now it won't turn over, chances are you've got a little bit of rust between the piston rings and the cylinder walls, and it's holding the engine in place. Now, you can break this loose by removing the spark plugs and shooting a blast of penetrating lube into the cylinders. This will dissolve the rust, release the rings, and allow you to break the engine free, a lot of times by just rotating the fan belt. But you may want to put a wrench on the crank bolt and turn it if you need a little extra torque. There we go. Now, it may take some time to do this, a couple of applications, maybe even a few days of letting it sit and soak. But you don't want to get in a hurry here. Because if you force it, you can break off the crank bolt, or even worse, you can snap one of the piston rings. And then you get to pull the engine out and rebuild it. Yeah, not a good thing. Now, once you have everything broken loose and turning free, you can move on to the next step of getting the engine running. If you'd like to learn more tips to make your life easier in the shop, check out the tips page on the website. Okay, to make an engine run again, you need to make sure it's getting fuel air and spark, and you're getting rid of all that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, we're going to need some replacement parts here, which means a trip to the auto parts store. Now, on something this old, this funky, you're going to have to dig for these parts. You're going to have to cross-reference some things, so it's important to have somebody behind the counter that knows what they're doing. For example, O'Reilly had everything that we need for this vehicle, including a Solex carburetor rebuild kit and valve cover gaskets for that funky little V4. Even though they'd never seen one before, couldn't believe I was working on it, they were able to find the parts, and that is huge in making a project like this a success. Now, the first thing we're going to dig into is the fuel system. As you can see, the carburetor is all crusted up, so we're going to take it off, take it apart, rebuild it, get everything working good again. Hey, we're back and dealing with a common problem that most gearheads are going to face from time to time. Getting something running after it's been sitting for a while. And this old Snowcat is a prime example of something you might find is sitting in a barn or out in a field somewhere. Now, so far we've cleaned it up, we've knocked the engine loose, pulled off the carburetor and rebuilt it. Now we're going to bolt it back on the engine, and then we're going to replace the fuel lines and the fuel filter with something that's compatible with today's fuels. The fuel pump is interesting because there's two of them. The original mechanical pump is still down on the engine, but it looks like somebody bypassed it and put on an electrical fuel pump using some pretty creative wiring. Now, actually, the electric fuel pump's a pretty good idea. So what we're going to do is test this pump, make sure it works. And if it does, we're going to keep the electrical pump, get rid of all the mechanical junk. For the fuel tank, got some bad news. Even though it looks good on the outside, on the inside, it looks like it's been sitting on the bottom of the ocean with the Titanic. So we're gonna have to chuck this thing. We're gonna rig up a temporary fuel supply until we decide what we're gonna do back here. It's too bad, that's a cool looking tank. Okay, with the fuel system taken care of, the fire is next. And we'll start by putting in some E3 spark plugs. And then replace the points, condenser, rotor, and cap, as well as the plug wires. Also, keep an eye out for any corroded or bad wiring connections and fix them when you find them, because they'll definitely cause problems down the road. Yeah, that caused, look at that, bare wire coming right off the coil. That would have caused some issues. Now, while you're messing with the wiring, it's a good idea to take the alternator and the starter down to the auto parts store and have them checked out. All right, we're getting good fuel to the engine, plenty of air, and a good spark. The final thing to do to an old engine before you put fire to it is the fluid. Because you know they're nasty, if there's even any in there. So we're gonna drain this old junk out and put in some fresh oil and a new filter. After that, we'll replace the heater and radiator hoses and fill the system with fresh antifreeze. Finally, we'll drop in a new battery, open the choke, and turn the key. RPM gauge working, oil pressure 30 pounds. So you think I can make this thing move? There you go, all right.
And now, Parts Bin, brought to you by Air Raid, American-made quality and performance since 1992.
Everybody knows how important gauges are to your vehicle. They're basically the way your engine talks to you and lets you know what's going on. And hot rodders figured out a long time ago that Stuart Warner had the gauges that could mean the difference between winning and losing. So the first thing most guys did is pull out the stock gauges and put in some Stuart Warners. Well, as they say, everything old is new again. So Stuart Warner has come out with these green line gauges that look like something out of the 60s. Now this is a modern gauge, but as you can see, they have the classic pointer, they have the little green line that goes around just like you would have seen in a Chevelle or some hot rod of the 60s. Now you can get these individually, you can get them in a 5-gauge set, you can get them in a 6-gauge set like this, and of course they come with all the sending units to work with whatever engine you're putting in. So if you're building a classic hot rod or muscle car or something new and you want to have that classic look and performance, Stuart Warner can take care of you with the green line gauges. One of the most versatile cutting tools to have in your box is an air saw, because they cut quick and they're extremely maneuverable. Well, the air saw just got better because Cornwell has come out with this 15-piece mini air saw kit. Now, at first glance, this looks like a typical air saw, till you realize that the smaller size is going to make this even more maneuverable. Then the kit also comes with all the cutting blades, 18-tooth, 24-tooth, 32-tooth. But the thing that really gets me going here are these little files. So now this becomes an air file, not just an air saw. Guys, you will use this all the time to open up holes, to trim metal, all kinds of stuff. So if you're working with metal, you need an air saw. And if you want the most versatile air saw, Cornwell's got one of these sitting on a truck for you. You know, performance cars come in all shapes and sizes and from all over the world. And BMW was well known for building some serious performance vehicles, but they can be better. At least that's the way Dinan looks at it. And over the years, they have become one of the premier places to make your BMW run better. For example, just putting on this Stage 1 Dynantronics Performance Tuner will add almost 50 horsepower under your hood. And this is just a plug-and-play deal. You plug it in, you're done. This performance muffler will add 4 horsepower, sound a whole lot better than your stock unit, and once again, it just slides in place and clamps on. They also have suspension components, brakes, wheels, engine parts, you name it. If you want your BMW to live up to the BMW legend, Dinan is the place all that starts.
What are you working on? Brought to you by Woodward Fabrication, selling quality metalworking equipment since 1966.
Today's What Are You Working On comes from Joe Grenier from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And Joe's been building cars since he was just a little kid, and he likes all kinds of cars. But he says that he always wanted a sleeper. You know, something that looks slow, but it's actually really fast. But he didn't just want any sleeper. Now, he wanted something that nobody would suspect, like a station wagon. And he didn't want just any old station wagon. He wanted something like, well, like this. What you're looking at is a 1980 Dodge Aspen station wagon. Yeah, that's probably one of the most non-performance cars ever built. That's exactly what Joe wanted. So the first thing he did is bring it in, pull out that trusty Slant 6, and you know, because it's a Dodge, there's only one engine that he wanted in there, a Hemi. So we started looking for a Hemi. And the search, he said, ended when he found a 1955 331 Hemi submerged in a 55-gallon drum of diesel fuel. Yeah! He said it took him 2 weeks just to get the pistons out. But that's all right, because he wanted his Hemi, wanted to start building it. So the first thing he did is he stuffed in a new crank, rods, and pistons, and the heads were rebuilt with new valves and springs. Then the whole massive engine was shoehorned between the fender wells of that tiny Aspen. Now, Joe says the project isn't completely finished yet, but you can rest assured that the outside of the car is going to stay looking just like this. And Joe says the reason for that is he wants to get the full mind-blowing effect when he boils the tires on that 80s wagon at a stoplight beside a Corvette. And that is an awesome project and an awesome approach to doing it. Joe, to recognize such a cool project, we hooked up with our buddies at Woodward Fab. We're going to give you one of these shears to help you cut some metal. And then we're going to give you one of our project planning books so you can document everything that you've done on that project. And we're also going to give you a Sergeant Rock package, which is the t-shirt and the die cast and the guitar pick. And we're also going to give you an O'Reilly gift card to help offset the cost of some of your project. Now, the rest of you guys, if you'd like to get your project featured on the show, you got to go to our website, go to Gearz Nation, and submit your project. We've pulled all of our features, all of our on-the-road segments right off of Gearz Nation. Also, don't forget to check us out on Twitter and Facebook and all other forms of social media, because they've always got cool stuff going on there. All right, you need to get out and work on something. I've got a Snowcat to work on. We will see you next time.